Howdy folks, and welcome to the Hillbilly Kitchen. Today we're making a 30-minute-ish dinner roll. That's right, a yeast dinner roll in just about 30 minutes. And it only has a few simple ingredients. These rolls are almost as easy as biscuits. Before we get started, I want to take just a second and ask you to please subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We are this close to 1 million subscribers. You may even be the 1,000,000th subscriber. It would mean a lot to me personally. It would mean a lot to my family. We are all getting very excited about the milestone that we are about to reach. Please like the video and share it with your friends too. Thank you so very much for being a part of this journey and for being a part of the Hillbilly Kitchen. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Okay, the few simple ingredients you need. I'm using a half a cup of milk, whole milk. You can use any milk or you can use water. Water will work perfectly fine in these. I have an egg, a tablespoon of sugar, a tablespoon of yeast, which is one of the little packets, 2 tablespoons of butter, half a teaspoon of salt, and we're going to use about 1 3/4 to 2 cups of flour. We'll just see how much we need. Now I'm going to show you the super simple way to do this and the quick way. That's why I don't have everything in separate bowls. We're going to warm our milk up to about 100 degrees, and I'm going to go ahead and add my sugar to that, because if I was making these without showing it to you, I would have just put my sugar in my milk. You do not want to get this over 100 degrees, but you want it right there, 98 to 100 degrees. If it's too hot, it will kill your yeast. If it's too cold, your yeast won't activate, and we have to activate the yeast to make these rolls quick. So I'm just going to warm this up in the microwave about 30 seconds because I took it out of the refrigerator and it's cold. We're also going to melt our butter in the microwave when we get our milk out. Okay, now you can test this with a thermometer if you are unsure. I just kind of use my finger. I had a lot of kids and tested a lot of baby bottles. That's just about perfect. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add our yeast to our milk and our sugar or our water, because like I said, water will work just fine in this. And we're going to let it bloom. That means it's going to get kind of foamy. And it is sort of a good idea to stir this up a little bit. It kind of keeps it from lumping, which is going to make it easier to mix here in a minute. Well, that got our butter really warm. I just did the melt. Let it cool down just a touch because we're going to add our egg directly into this bowl. All right, we'll let that sit there and get foamy or bloom. This is just one of those little vinyl cutting board things, and I love them for making bread. It's easy to knead it on them, especially small batches like this. And what we're doing with this, I'll just set these out here so you can enjoy them while we're doing this. We're going to make about 6 rolls that are this size, and I made these yesterday, and you can see they're still nice and soft. They're not hard. We have our butter and our salt in here, and we're going to add 1 egg to it. Now, if you're making these for Thanksgiving, you can double this, the yeast and the flour and everything, and just use 1 egg, because 1 egg will do more. I know eggs are expensive, and with the price of everything, every little bit we can cut back helps. Go ahead and beat up your egg, and then we're going to start adding our flour into our egg and our butter and our salt. Now, to cut corners, you can use oil in this instead of the butter. I like the flavor of the butter. I also like the flavor of the milk, and all that stuff adds flavor. You can put honey in here, and you can put extra honey in here if you want them sweeter, or you can put extra sugar in to make them sweeter if you want them sweeter. This is going to give you a nice fluffy yeast roll that it has a very neutral flavor almost, for lack of a better word. So it goes really, really good with soups. You could do slider sandwiches on it. I mean, I'd make them smaller if I was going to do slider sandwiches, but this is a really good dinner roll, and it is super fast. So anyway, let's get on with making it super fast, because they're not going to be 30 minutes if I keep talking. I'm going to go ahead and put 1.5 cups about of flour in here, and then we will add another 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup as we need it. I like to kind of combine this with a little rubber spatula. I think it makes it easy, and it makes it clean, and it's pretty fast. So we're just going to kind of start combining our flour and our salt and our butter or our oil, whichever one, while our yeast continues to bloom. And if you can see down in here, our yeast is getting foamy. It's a good idea to always let your yeast bloom when you're making any kind of yeast bread, because that tells you that your yeast is good, that you didn't get your water or your milk too hot before you mess up flour, which, gosh, I can't believe how high everything has gotten. If I was making these for Thanksgiving, I would probably at least triple this. But for a pot of soup and just weeknight dinner, this is great. So now we're going to go ahead and add our bloomed yeast and our sugar and our milk into our flour mixture. Try to get all that out of there, because that's what makes our rolls fluffy. Another good reason to use a spatula. And then we're just going to keep combining this until we get a dough. If you're making these for Thanksgiving and you want to make a couple of dozen of them, it's easy to figure it out, because this is going to do 1/2 But you can mix these in your stand mixer with your dough hook. That's perfectly fine. And a lot of folks have told me that they love making yeast breads, but they can't really do it anymore because now they have arthritis. Well, stuff like this in small batches is a really good way to kind of keep doing yeast breads, and it shouldn't hurt your hands. I mean, you should be able to handle this even if you have a little pain. And you're dealing with this while it's really warm, which actually kind of feels good. It's kind of therapeutic if you've got arthritis in your hands. Okay, now all I'm going to mix this with the spatula is just until it kind of forms a dough. And you can tell it's formed a dough. I can kind of clean my spatula off, and it's scraping off my bowl. So now we're going to knead this for about 3 or 4 minutes. And I got out a lot of flour. Little on your board, little on your hands. Why didn't I dump it out before I put a little on my hands? Y'all make me nervous. Okay. A little on my board, and then a little on my hands after I dump my dough out. And I'm sure I have out probably plenty. And to knead this, you just want to do quarter folds and push. Start kind of slow until it forms a dough. You don't want to get too aggressive with it and get it all over you. But you can see how nice these little boards are for small batches of bread. I mean, it wouldn't do 2 dozen rolls like we were talking about for Thanksgiving dinner. Yep, I've got enough flour here, I'm pretty sure. Just quarter turns and push it until you have a nice smooth dough that is not sticky anymore. And I'm still getting some sticky here. Okay, we're getting a dough now. Alright, now we want to grease our pan that we're making these in, and you can again use oil or butter, or you can even spray it. I'm going to do a little butter because it gives it a nice flavor, and that will keep our rolls from sticking. Okay, now you're either going to need a pizza cutter or a dough blade, which is what this is, or a really sharp knife. You could use your butcher knife for this, but you want to cut this into 6 or even 8 rolls if you wanted to make them small. And if I was making them for Thanksgiving dinner, I'd probably definitely make them smaller. And I never get mine even. I want you to look at the 2 halves of that. Normally, in most roll recipes, what you would do is you would let this dough rise for about an hour until it doubled in size. After you divide it, you just want to shape it into 4 big giant rolls, 6 this size, or you could even, like I said, do 8 smaller ones and place them in your pan. Now, at this point, go ahead and preheat your oven to about 400 degrees. And we're gonna set these, if you turn the oven on while these are sitting, you can sit these on the oven and let them rise, and we wanna let them sit and rise for about 15 minutes. And then we're gonna bake them for what I saw is 10-ish minutes. It actually takes about 14 minutes. That's why I said we're making 30-ish minute rolls. In all reality, by the time you need these and divide them and you get them put in the pan and you let them sit and rest for 15 minutes, you're gonna have them on the table in 40 minutes, not 30 minutes, but that's not too bad for rolls. And this dough, I mean, like I said, normally you'd let it sit and double. For some reason, it like is doubling in the time that it takes me to shape it into rolls. So they, you know, we're letting them sit another 15 minutes before we bake them, and they come out really fluffy, really good. Blooming the yeast in advance helps develop the flavor of the yeast in the roll, and it also helps it rise faster. So I definitely recommend that. This one's gonna be tiny. The only way to get them even is, or the only way for me to get them even is to get out a scale and like weigh everyone and then shape them. And we're trying to get dinner on the table, so who cares? All right, now you don't have a whole lot of cleanup if you use your vinyl mat. And don't throw this in the sink yet, because you can use this to cover your rolls while they're sitting on the stove waiting to go in the oven. You can also cover them with a wet towel, wring it out and lay it over the top. It helps make them more moist. You could even put a wet towel under this, but you do want to cover them and sit them in a warm place, which I'm going to put them on the stove for 15 minutes before you bake them. And I have some that I've already made that are ready to go in the oven. And I just covered these with a wet paper towel. They're close to double in size. 15 minutes on the back of the oven covered. Okay, now a little trick before we put them in the oven. We want to take a sharp knife, a razor blade, whatever, and they make tools for this, and we do want to slit the top. These, I put a little cross in them. You don't have to do a cross. You can just do a single slit like that, or a couple of slits. It's entirely up to you. But what this does is it lets the gas out of your roll, so when it goes in the oven and starts baking, it can rise even more. And then we're going to bake these 10 to 15 minutes depending on your oven and how big they are. So it takes about 14 minutes in my oven at 400 degrees. And you make you a big pot of some sort of creamy soup to go with these, and you have a really good meal really cheap. Homemade soups are not very expensive. I mean, I know you can get into some complicated ingredients, but we have a lot of super simple soups. We got some that have a lot of ingredients, but we've got some simple ones too. Some old-fashioned ones. And I'll put our soup playlist at the end of this video. All right, now we're just gonna put these in the oven and bake them for 10 to 14 minutes until they're golden brown. And you can do stuff too. I mean, you can brush them with butter, you can brush them with egg, you can brush them with milk. You can add herbs to these, garlic, cheese, onions, make some onion buns, just whatever you want. Get creative. This is a basic recipe. 10 to 14 minutes till they're brown. Oh my gosh, these came out so pretty. Let's hide yesterday's. Anyway, these cooked in about 12 and a half minutes. So we're getting closer to that 30-minute dinner roll. But I honestly think, full disclosure, it's going to take about 45 minutes to make these start to finish. But that is kind of incredible. 45 minutes, yeast bread on the table. I think a lot of folks who can do stuff try to make it sound more complicated, so folks that don't know how to do it won't even try it, and that makes them special. And I think as far as baking bread goes, that might be part of what's going on. I have found a whole lot of shortcuts since I have been sharing stuff with y'all. And I think yeast bread is probably a whole lot easier than a lot of people say it is, but there are a lot of shortcuts. And this recipe is the perfect example of that. I mean, fresh hot yeast rolls in the time that it would take you to make a pot of soup. What kind of soup would y'all make with this? It is fall. Cornbread and chili go together, but like some cream of potato or some broccoli cheddar, some creamy vegetable. Oh gosh, I don't know. I'm gonna have to make some soup though to go with this. And what I'm doing right now is another little tip that I want to share with you. A lot of people say melt butter and brush your rolls with melted butter. Well, if you melt butter, you're always going to waste some butter. Just take a stick of cold butter and go around the top of them, and they are perfectly coated with hot melted butter. And I didn't waste any at all because I can either use this on the table, I can use this in my pot of soup I'm making, or I can stick it back in the refrigerator to use it later. It's not hurt at all. And your rolls are best served hot. I mean, look at this. They are just gorgeous. Put them in a pretty bowl. And it's better too if you line it with something and use a basket or a bowl. Line it with a towel or a pretty napkin, and that kind of keeps your rolls from sweating. If you just put them in the bowl, they're going to sweat. But something fabric will keep them from sweating, and you can wrap them up to keep them warm for a minute if your soup is not ready, or if you're making them for Thanksgiving dinner and you got a whole bunch of people gonna eat them. And I'd rip one of these in half, but daggone, they're hot. I do want to try and pull one in half. They just came out of a 400-degree oven. Look at the center of that. Is that gorgeous or what? Ow! I mean, it's fluffy. It tastes good. Don't forget the salt. You gotta have it. But these are just absolutely perfect yeast rolls. And they will make your Thanksgiving dinner, and they will certainly make your next pot of soup something super special. And you can make them in the time it takes you to make a pot of soup. Yeast rolls are not that hard. Before we go, I want to leave you with Matthew 4:4. But he answered and said, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God." Make sure that you are nourishing your soul every day with God's Word. It will certainly make you happier. It will bring peace to your life. It will make you wiser without any doubt. And it will even make you healthier. Thank you so very much for joining us in the Hillbilly Kitchen. If you have not already, please don't forget to click like and subscribe before you leave. And until next time, remember to put God first.